हाँ, तुम मार्स में भी किसी को ले जाके वहां पे गाना शूट करते हो पिक्चर में, लव स्टोरी, बट शुड भी लगा के गया है भाई वो मार्स, जाके मोहब्बत करके आया है, पता है? When I started spending so much time on set doing what you do, I realized there's so much that goes into making a film, right? And people don't really know what happens and how it happens and who are these people who make it. When an AD comes in, okay, shall we shift this scene? Can I move that? Move? So you constantly on that particular moment in 5 minutes have to think, अगर ये वहां गया, वो यहाँ हुआ, this backfires, that backfires, my actors did, that actors did, logic, time, lighting, scene, can I pull it off, how am I, all of that you have to comprise in 5 minutes and say yes or no.
Hello, welcome to Where We Talk About Films, a podcast where will we talk about films. My name is Vidar Joshi, I'm your host, and today's episode is about cinematography, how a written word is translated onto the screen. And for that, we have with us, of course, Mr. Jay Oza, as you read in the title. So, with his knowledge about cinematography and my overexposed camera, let's begin. Let's start. So, there's this quote I read by Abbas Kiarostami which said that films, like, people don't see life until it's put inside a frame. And I guess that's what cinema is about, like encapsulating the life of a character inside a frame and then delivering that to the audiences. So today, to understand the craft behind creating these frames, the craft of cinematography, we have with us one of the finest cinematographers working in the industry. He's the man behind the beautiful frames you see in Raman Raghav, Gully Boy, Ghoul, Blackmail, and so many more. Today we have with us Mr. Jay Oza. Thank you so much for coming, sir. How are you?
Thank you for having me over. I'm very, very good. Little tired. In fact, yesterday after almost 14th March was when I finished Tufan.
Okay.
And yesterday I finally went on a set and I shot. We shot a commercial yesterday. So after really long, I united with my team and did what I do. Because for 4 months in this lockdown, I actually had stopped behaving, thinking, and feeling like a cinematographer because I had just finished a film which was going on for really long. So I was tired. So actually I took this time off as my vacation in lockdown, and honestly, I didn't see content. I didn't see films. I did not consume a lot of visual content because I was like, I just want to take a break. So yesterday I went on set and finally did what I did. And it was really, I was really nervous, because I'd not done. And when I went for the tech recce, I was not able to think like a cinematographer. I was not able to work at the way and function talking visuals. And it took me some time to get there. But it was fun. So a little tired, but doing amazing, man. It's always great to be back on camera.
My first question is about the set. That how do you manage to create so much of entertaining content for Instagram stories while being on set and creating the beautiful frames you're creating?
To be honest, I have a lovely team I work with, which has its own story. Like I was an assistant under Anka Bose, and that's where I met Abdul and all these boys, and I was a light boy under them. And eventually things, moved on in life. And I remember that one day when I was shooting some promo for a Sony television series, kind of my initial jobs I was getting. So I was saying yes to whatever I was getting to get hands on camera. And I go to the location and Abdul was standing there. And he's like, "Arey, tu kisko assist kar raha hai?" And I'm like, "Ab main DP hu, tu mera gaffer hai." So it's been 8 years he's been with me, including Mane, who came on 24. And I have a fantastic team. And there's so much of fun stuff happens. And I also, when I started spending so much time on set doing what you do, I realized there's so much that goes into making a frame, right? And people don't really know what happens and how it happens and who are these people who make it. Eventually, very rarely, even if you today go in a cinema hall, only a filmmaker will sit through the internet. You know what I mean? So I was like, because that's also because if you look at any of the making of our films, it's never about the making of the film. They are promoting the film. So you only have actors talking, you have directors talking, and all the directors also feel like we don't really make making of. So people do not know what goes behind making of a film. And of course, that doesn't give. I don't know. I don't think that people have to, on basis of that, have to trash a film or not trash a film. But I'm like, just people do not know what all effort goes into a film. And when I was on set and I just noticed that so much of stuff goes in and there's so much of fun that happens, and there's so much of just things happening around me. So I just randomly started capturing it. And I used to just put random captions on it. And I suddenly started having this massive following of filmmakers wanting to be filmmakers who are enjoying, and they said, it's so much fun to know what is happening and to know people who are making what is, who make, because eventually if I get the award, people know me, but I'm not the person. I'm not the only one who made those frames. There were like bunch of so many people who's so many years of experience, knowledge, effort, sweat, blood, souls, energy has gone into it. I go and receive the award, but so I just wanted to celebrate that, and that's what I started doing, and just having fun with it and not taking everything so seriously. And it's just basically showing what I experience on a daily basis, that it was stressful, because our profession is also very stressful, when you're on a set and there's always pressure. But I always feel that you have to have fun doing what you do, because eventually that's the point, because it's the most collaborative art form, filmmaking, and everyone's little effort really eventually matters on the screen. And if you as a filmmaker can really notice all of that tiny things, and how a morning chai can affect your first shot, the dada who's making your chai, so even those tiny minute details. And I think I just have to celebrate everyone who's a filmmaker or a part of the community, and that's what I do with my stories.
It's beautiful. So how did it start? Why films? Like, how did you enter into films, and why? What appealed to you to start making films?
Honestly, I was as a kid, I do remember just watching normal television. As a kid, I remember Sundays was Mahabharat. That was the only day as a kid we used to be allowed to have chai. And so I have seen normal television. I'm not much of a reader, so I was not into books or comics either. But I used to sketch a lot and all of that. So when eventually after 12th, I was like, what do I do? I was not really sure about what I wanted to do. So I ended up giving a lot of exams. I knew that I didn't want to stay in Baroda. I wanted to go out of Baroda and, experience the hostel life. And so I was in clear. So I gave National Defense Academy, NIFT, NID, FTII, IHM, kidhar mila, kidhar nahi mila. Eventually I joined Fine Arts. Then I went to Delhi to study outside. Did not get it there, came back to Fine Arts, whatever. And in my third year of studying art history and aesthetics, my sister had joined cinema after her studying, and that's how I got to know about the world. And from whatever stories I heard from her, I just enjoyed the process. I just hearing the stories of set was very intriguing. So I was not a cinephile, or I was not a kid who was grown up watching a lot of cinema. So I was not aware of this art form. And that's where I got to kind of get my first internship on Rangde, where I was just actually told to watch, come and see how it happens. And I did that, and somewhere one PA had to go back home of certain family emergency, and then I kind of filled in his shoes. And that's how the process started. So for me, I really got to know about filmmaking once I really started it, And that's when I really enjoyed the process of seeing there's so many people coming together to create one thing. And that really kind of, I enjoyed it, because in one day you would meet people from different parts of society, from different backgrounds, economic, everything, structure, society, everything coming together, but they all think alike when they come at 7 o'clock in the morning. So that 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., they all think alike and they all think that. And that was really beautiful for me, and I enjoyed the process. I'm very outgoing. I'm a very physical person. I like physical activity. So I think that's when I started. And as an AD, I worked for quite some time. And working as an AD is when I got to know about the camera and how camera teams work. And that is where my interest started inclining. And I also understood that studying art history and aesthetics for 4 years as my graduation in MSU Fine Arts, I was just used to seeing a lot of art. And while I was studying, because we studied from prehistoric art to the contemporary art in 4 years, and all art forms, architecture, sculpture, paintings, murals, everything, civilizations. And when in my third year, when we were studying Dutch Flemish paintings, and when we came to chiaroscuro, is where my eyes were really attracted to the way those paintings were. They were all single source lighting. And that's when I think I traced back, and I'm into visuals. And that's when I said I do, because I cannot be honest, I'm not much of a reader writer. Writer zero. All I can write is, hi, I'm Jay Oza. So that's when being a director, knowing what all it takes to be a director and the process, because I worked on the film. And I continued to work as an AD. I did production for Amazing Race. And because of those experiences is when I realized that I think I'm more of a visual person. So I want to shift to cinematography. Being said that, at that point of time, it was very difficult to shift to cinematography because all celluloid. So, DPs also wanted FTI pass out. So students who have studied science, because there was a lot of science, celluloid, you have to wash it. There's a lot of physics, chemistry involved in the art form itself. So it was very difficult for me to shift, and everyone had their own teams, So I, at that point of time, thought maybe studying might help, because even I have a basic degree, people will know at least usko pata hai kya hai. Then we can train someone as compared to training someone. So that was my thought process, and that's how I eventually decided to go study, and then I came back and then shifted to cinematography. So for me, if I say filmmaking happened to me, I would say by chance. And then once I got to know, I just fell in love with the process. In turn, falling in love with the art form. So for me, I fell in love with the process before I fell in love with the art form. Yeah.
So you were studying fine arts, as you said. That so paintings are basically the initial way of telling a story visually. So how much that influences your visual aesthetic right now, as a DP?
Very much, and very, very much, because as you said, because they are still images, and we had to write and break it down, and so I have spent hours and hours feeling what is this boring job am I doing? I didn't want to study this and all, sitting in an archive. But just because I was in an art school, because you were just interacting with all my friends. One was a sculptor, someone is a painter, someone's a graphic artist, and you're in that community of artists, Though art historians department was all the PhD doctor types, and I was the only one who was like, but just staring at a visual, constantly staring at a visual and observing it was my training. And also seeing how, if in a still image, painters would say an entire story of an era of 10 years, or like there's so many minute detailing which when you look, you will see. And so I think that was the basic thing. So even today, when I look at cinematography, I think how, even if you pause it, you watch something with mute, your camera should have certain ability to say the story. It's not about making things look good. And over the period of time, I learned that cinematography is not about making things look good. And that's when I started contemplating and putting back my experience of college days, of how understanding paintings, light, how light they set story, how a still could say so much of story. When you get the power of making that into 24 stills into 1 second, you just have immense more power. That comes with immense responsibility as well. So I think for me, it's always about storytelling. Then comes, does it look good or not? Because if you're not able to say the story, then making it look good or bad let's not decide that. But we should just be able to say a story. So today also, every time I attempt is to say where, if you get a text over script, how through camera, without overpowering, can I push this text? Or whatever the action the actors are doing, emotions, how can I genuinely convey that in the best possible way for the audience to absorb and feel the same way that the director, he or she, or the actors are trying to do? And how camera can enhance it. And it's funny and amazing how I learned over the years how a simple lens, like lensing, the distance between your lens and the subject can, or how long you hold a shot, or where your camera is, can enhance and do so many things. So I'm totally now exploring and learning that thing of how the power of camera, how the power of visuals, how you can say or not say. And it's always not about what you're showing. Camera is also a lot about what you're not showing in filmmaking. Many times you can say a very powerful message, or a very powerful, or you can convey things more strongly by not showing it. For example, like in Raman Raghav, when we were making the film, Anurag came up and he's like, when I read the script, there was so much of bloodbath in it, and I got really excited. I was like, I want to shoot a bloodbath. And when I was discussing with Anurag, he's like, so basically all that action in this written in the script is all gonna be off camera. I'm like, what do you mean by off camera? He's like, वो दिखाएंगे नहीं हम. I'm like, नहीं इतना अच्छा लिखा है कैसे नहीं दिखाएंगे यार? He's like, no, I want this film to go in cinema and everyone will be able to watch it, which is very interesting process also, you know. So if you look at Raman Raghav, all the violence happens off camera, but you still feel the gore of it, you know. And because you haven't seen it, it scares you more. Like
because
I got called, so people think
imagination.
It's we got sleepless nights because that you haven't seen what the character did, but you saw his intention. That's freaky. You don't need to see, but वो खाली एक आदमी हद तक जा सकता है करता है that with that ease and that's what, you know, you learn when you work with directors like this. And you know, I literally argued because I was excited कि यार blood camera में क्या दिखेगा, it'll be so much fun to light it and do it. And he was like, you know, believe me, Jay, it'll work. And it does beautifully, you know what I mean? So as I said, it's a lot about storytelling. With camera comes so about what you're not showing as compared to what you're showing.
Sure. Yeah. So as you said that you started noticing the single source light in the paintings and things like that, and in a lot of films we see that cinematographers and filmmakers recreate these paintings, like in Inherent Vice there was this Last Supper was recreated, or multiple, like in Psycho it was The House by the Railroad. So is there a particular painting which influenced you so much that you wish that, okay, I get an opportunity to recreate this or something like that?
No, to be honest, the whole concept of chiaroscuro is what got me. Single source, you know, where if you look at the Dutch Flemish paintings and they were like single source lit and how light falls. And to be honest, I also, when I started as a DP, the first worry was मेरे को lighting आएगा कि नहीं आएगा. Because जब हम set पे रहते हो, जब मैं assistant भी था, जब set पे देखते हो समझ में नहीं आता. एक light लगाया था और उसके सामने 50 cutter है. तो मैं बोला कौन सा light किधर पहुंच रहा है? So it's very confusing when you see, you know, what are people doing. So I was very nervous, and when you come from a film school, you know, they teach you 3-point lighting, back, fill, ये. तो वो डर रहता था. तो पहली बार I also then over the period of time started training myself to light the way I see things.
Okay.
You know, for me, and also chiaroscuro also, like I still light the way कि भैया अगर यहाँ से window तो यहाँ से light आएगी. अगर वो actor पीछे खड़ा है तो उसका शक्ल पे जो bounce आएगा वो आएगा. Okay. Then you tweak it as per what is the sensitivity of your subject. But my basic lighting still today is very much from how I experience light myself in my life, and what I see and how I see and how aesthetically I like to see images. Okay. That's why I like contrast. I like to see contrast images. If you see my work has a certain level of contrast. People say he shoots only grunge, but that's the kind of work I've got. Even if I do... so that was exactly the reason, because so I wanted to have contrast in there also, but and that is the reason I picked up Made in Heaven, because I'd only done grunge and I wanted to do a different genre. But at the same point of time, even if you sit in your house, you could be in the poshest of your house, but the way light falls, I just don't like, I don't know, I just like shadows in my life, and I say if there's no shadow, there's no light for me at least. But for me, I think I don't know if there's any specific artwork I would want to recreate or influences me massively, but I would say I would give it to chiaroscuro as a study of light, which was my beginning of interest of understanding light. And as of now, I'm still learning. I'm still exploring. Every project is a different challenge. Every thing is a different thing. So I think I'm still exploring in forms of lighting and understanding lighting, but I try to keep it to something that I personally experienced myself.
Okay. Interesting that you mentioned that, because my next question is somewhat related. Like recently saw I Gurudutt's Pyasa, and in that there is a scene where like the conversation is going on, and during that same shot the lighting changes and the characters are now into a silhouette, which goes from a really, really realistic place to very expressionism kind of a zone. And what you said that you like to light very realistically, कि यहाँ से light आ रहा है and then bounce होके जितना character पे आएगा उतना ठीक है. So what is your take on that? Like shifting from realism to expressionism in just Yeah.
For sure, and that is the best thing that you could do. That's the tool that we have. That's what I keep telling my assistant sometimes. कि हम जो दिखाएंगे वो देखेंगे.
Nice.
As public वो ही देखेगी जो हम दिखाएंगे. Because sometimes they come and question me, अरे but सब लोग ये पूछेंगे तो हम लोग क्यों पूछेंगे? अगर तू confidently दिखाएगा तो but you always have to. I also have to have a backing to it that you have in your head and that convinces you. And again, because it's an art form, you do shift from that, and you have to shift because eventually, what are you doing? You're taking your viewer into a surreal world that doesn't really exist. You're taking them from their real world and taking them out of that comfort to a new comfort or discomfort. And I do not believe that you only have to comfort the audience. Even if it is discomfort, do it with so much honesty that you mess up that person for a reason. So for that creative choice, for that expression, and to express a certain way, and if that requires that, for sure, and I do manipulate light in a lot of ways to get that certain feeling, to accentuate an emotion or underline certain things which are maybe not very realistic. But I I try to do it in a way where it's so subtle that it doesn't jerk you. Like if you question it, that means that's why if someone comes and says, Jay, camera work bahut acha tha, that means somewhere all of us as a film has somewhere I'm not making my show reel. So as for me, I do not, if my work gets announced, then it is an alarming situation that you have overdone yourself. Because somewhere it needs to, your work also needs to work for the film.
As an artist, you're serving
does
the
it
film.
need that change? Does it need that change? Will that extreme work? Sometimes the extremes work beautifully. Sometimes they do not, because then they look overtly designed. कि जबरदस्ती क्यों कर रहा है? So I think that is a very thin line. That I think it's all about your personal sensibilities and your personal sensitivities in collaboration with your creator director. कि आप उसको कहाँ तक लेके जाते हो. But I think that is, for me, when I say realism, I do not stick to it. When I have to, I do create surreal. But also in the surrealism, I try to do in a very convincing way that it looks कि तुम यहाँ जा सकते हो. For example, when I shot Ghoul, the reason I did Ghoul was because I felt horror genre in this country was not explored that much, and I wanted to do it. And for me, that was completely a new setup. So we tried to create surreal things, but make it look real. कि ये कहीं हो सकता है.
Plausible, not exactly possible.
तुम मार्स में भी किसी को ले जाके वहां पे गाना शूट करते हो पिक्चर में लव स्टोरी, बट शुड भी लगा के गया भाई वो मार्स जाके मोहब्बत करके है. So I'm saying that is where I'm talking about realism, where you can pull your audiences and pull them out of their world and say this is it. If it's done that convincingly, go for do anything. And people are doing some amazing stuff there. And it's just the content has to be written for it. If it's not written that way and you overtly camera wise take it, then I feel it mismatches. So also the content has to be written that way for you to visualize and take it that place.
Okay. So
that's what I feel, and that's the kind of work I have done so far.
Another thing about your work that usually in films, characters go through an external journey, but if there is also an internal journey going on inside the character, and sometimes saying it out loud is not something what the filmmaker chooses. So in your collaboration with the director, what are the tools and as a cinematographer you have, and how do you externalize what the character is feeling internally? Just give an example, this character is feeling a certain way and these are the tools I have. So what's your approach towards that?
For me, it always is about first of all understanding where the director he or she is coming from in terms of what they want to say through a particular scene or a particular narrative. After that, a lot changes once the actors come on board, because they then bring the life to those ideas. आपने और आपके डायरेक्टर ने तो खाली सोचा है, आपने विजुअलाइज किया है, और वो भी आप लोग को लगता है आप सेम पेज पे, पर वो शायद सेम ना हो, क्योंकि तेरे दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है, मेरे दिमाग में वो इवेंचुअली 6 घंटे बाद बोलेंगे करेक्ट दोनों घर जाएंगे नहीं, my director on the same page, I'll be like, oh, my DP is on the same page. But so when the actors and the physicality comes into place is when you get that thing, and that's when you start molding and getting. So for me, it's I always stick to my actors and see what they are doing and then adapt to pick up their nuances and how you can accentuate that and how you can do certain things. So for me, for example, in Gully Boy, which is a film that where we, is one of the films that I've done the most prep. Like Zoya is very, very, scheduled about her prep and how she goes making her film, and she gets into every little details of the look, and she does the look fantastically with, So this was my first time working with Suzanne, Zoya, and these guys have been working together as a team. So when I entered, it was I just took back and I learned the process of how this can happen, and that's when you now see Gully Boy. People talk about palette look, but I'm like, this is not me. This was like it was so designed from day one. And we broke down the entire script, but a lot of scenes we were like, this all depends organically. Set pe kya hota, main pata nahi hai what is the space, and there's no point of abhi hum track dal denge. I also like to see the place and feel the place. And we would come and set every morning. The actors would get off their cars. They would come and do rehearsal.
Okay.
Where they come in their own. Ranveer comes, Ranveer, Alia comes, Alia, all whatever who comes.
Yeah.
And they would do a first run. We would then break it down. कि ऐसे cover करना है, इतने shots है. Then the actors go and get into their character, change and all of that. While that time we are prepping, the whole crew's prepping. Because once we start, Zoya doesn't like to stop. She's like, once the actors are on, then everyone needs to know what we are doing, what's next setup, we shoot order. And then when the actors come back in costume, and then we do one more rehearsal, so all the departments know what we are moving, how we are moving. So boom knows kahan jana hai. So it's silent set, minimum people. And that's when a lot of times on set I realized that हम लोग बहुत बार breakdown करते थे. And a lot of times after 1 hour of actors changing into their costume, coming back, what they would do is very different from what they did. Because Ranveer would come in the morning at 6:30, he did it like Ranveer. वो 1 घंटा बाद जाके अपने आप को आईने में देख के तैयार होके he is prepared for Murad. And when he came back as a Murad, he did certain things differently. And I was like, dude, no, we have to change it. We cannot do those 9 shots. I'm like, let's do it 1 shot. And the magic happens there. So I try to be honest in the moment what happens. Yes, you plan it, but I also am not very strict to my planning. I will change it moment I feel, something different is happening in front of you. So I treat it to that final moment, and if all your earlier plans fit, you move on with them. But if at that instinct you feel that no, you need to change, and that's a gut feeling you get. Either you do it or you don't. Either that fear happens, कि रहने में change नहीं करता हूँ, I'll go back to what I had planned. It's safer. So I think that is the fun, and that is the exciting part. So
but do you think
if you feel it, you go for it.
Sorry, continue.
No, I'm done.
No, I'm saying, do you think that comes with the experience and the amount of films you have done? Because in the beginning, it can be very difficult to trust your instinct more than your planning. For sure. And for me, I would totally say it only happens with experience, and you always grow. You are not the filmmaker that you were in your last film, or you're not the filmmaker that you were yesterday. Because you're not the same person as you are, and filmmakers and the community is generally a very seeker kind of a community. What you were yesterday, you are not today. So I think it's same implies that you grow, and every experience teaches you. Again, because it's a collaborative art form, हर प्रोजेक्ट में कोई ना कोई से तुम कुछ ना कुछ सीखोगे आर्ट के बारे में, अपने बारे में. और a lot of time the projects teach you more about yourself, and that kind of starts incorporating in your work. And I always feel about being a cinematographer, it's always about, you have to be first genuine to yourself, because you have to be honest to those. If you're trying to recreate certain emotions, you have to first feel those emotions and genuinely feel how it is. Even if you have to create discomfort for someone, you have to feel that discomfort within you, and feel what is that discomfort, how are you feeling, then you try and you put into your work, and that really works. And in genuine energy, then, because every one of us have experienced all of those things that we are trying to recreate. Yeah, I feel experience for sure. And when I shot 24, and I'm like, right now I can really say, like, I'm able to block scenes very fast. But that happened also because like me and Tanay shot 24 season 1. We had shot 188 days back to back in one schedule. And yeah, that broke us, but that taught us like
that made us monsters and be ready. We were shooting 11 pages a day. We have shot one room with 20 actors, all of them talking, and you have to block cover. So that day, now when I'm shooting a scene, I immediately start getting ideas of at least the basic, how to block. But that has happened because I've spent so many days on camera. And my operating also became better after that because you've spent 188 days of creating content. So I was not the same DP on day 116th, not on the 120th or 175th or 188. We constantly grew, we understood, we learned, we matured, our craft improved and all of that. So experience totally helps. And I think that's why you also somewhere as filmmakers, you can't be too hard on yourself about making something good. It's all about making it first and making it genuinely. Good or bad, वो बाकी की बात है. अब अगर वो पहले से intention तुम्हारा होगा कि मुझे कुछ जबरदस्त करना है, तो somewhere then you are stopping yourself to grow because you're there and you're getting there. But then once you get there, you won't go above it because आपने ये आपके लिए good तो ये हमको ये करना है. So I think I feel it's you have to let go and you have to also be okay to not always perform and not be able to do the best because again, as you are not the only one responsible. It's a collaborative art form, so you can't blame yourself alone. And it's okay to have failed somewhere, and that failure will teach you somewhere. And I think it's an ongoing process in every field. Yeah.
So you said that while shooting Gully Boy, there is a lot of preparation that went on. So let's just take let's understand the technical part of it. Like a lot of people, I don't come from a film family, so people don't know how films are made. Like the layman doesn't know how films are made, and they think it's very easy, but there's a lot of planning and everything going on behind the scenes. So as a cinematographer, how do you create the visual design on paper first, and what all on paper what all happens with the director?